Let me format it one more
there it
time.
goes.
Is it recording right now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna go. Oops. Totally got that on the chest. Alrighty, we're good. Okay. All right, everybody, welcome to Dev Faction. We really appreciate you guys coming out tonight. This is where we learn, mingle, and create. And we do that on a whole bunch of topics, including Node.js, Mongo. We do UX and UI, including wireframing, defining problems, solving problems, prototypes, WordPress, security, and even hacking. So we're really cool like that. We do all kinds of fun things. If you have a friend that missed this night, or you just want to go back over what we did tonight, we always post the video to our website, devfaction.com. You can find the lectures at /lectures and the tutorials at /tutorials. Pretty straightforward. We really couldn't do this without our admin team, so we'd like to recognize them. Our founders there, and then everybody else does social networking, web development, scheduling speakers, and so much more of these. So everybody here is very important to us because we could only pull it off with them. And if you want to join us, let us know. So we'd love to have you. Codecraft sponsors the space and the pizza. So one of our bigger sponsors, they have a user experience class that's 16-week program, nights and weekends, starts April 21st. The full stack web development is 12-week program. That's a daytime, Monday through Friday. The next one starts April 3rd. And Boulder Digital Arts supplies us all the audio and the cameras. We really wouldn't be able to do any of this without them, all this technical stuff. Boulder Beer, the brew that you guys are drinking, they donated it for us so we could have a wonderful evening. And I pay the meetup fees. If you want to learn more about me, I'm at ericwallen.tech, and I'll build your website, make your logo, pretty much design anything you like. I'll be more than happy to help you. So let's go ahead and give it up for Bentley Cook. He's going to do understanding RESTful APIs using Trellos. Woo! Give this to you, Bentley.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir. Actually,
okay.
Because if we get it too far to the side, all right, cool.
This is like an Apollo space launch.
Yep. That's right.
I'm going to sit down because I'm lazy. Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you guys for having me. Really excited to be here. Really excited to be talking. Thank you for the sponsors for the space, pizza, and beer. Here to talk a little bit about APIs, Trello, and this very cool tool called Glitch. I'm Bentley. I'm originally from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I will occasionally say y'all. I apologize in advance. I know you guys don't hear that very often out here in Boulder. I'm the developer advocate at Trello, so that means I get to talk about Trello, how awesome it is, and also answer questions about how to use our API all the time. So for me, this is what I do day in and day out, and I'm really excited to share that with you guys. This is like semi-follow along. I've got some things that you guys can do and participate. So feel free to have your computers open if you get too bored. all.reddit.com is pretty exciting most of the time. And if you have any questions, like don't hesitate, just like wave me down, just be like, Bentley, stop, we have no idea what you're doing. I will not be offended whatsoever at all. And to like answer the first question, yes, I'm a cool guy because I use Oxford commas. So hopefully we got that out of the way. I'm a trustworthy individual. Cool. So let's dive in. Like, what are RESTful? Like, who's used an API before? Like, familiar with like HTTP verbs, Git, that sort of thing. Okay, we've got some familiarity. So I answer like all of my life questions, Googling things. Like, what is life? How is Babby formed? And this is the beautiful answer that Wikipedia gave me. And I was like, oh, thanks, Wikipedia. That tells me a lot. Very, very cool, intuitive answer you've got there. And so after like Googling things, I always go then to Google image searches. And this is what Google image search gave me for RESTful APIs. And I really love this because like it's got the name of an iPhone. It's got the name of the operating system of the Android phone, and then it's got a web page, which is the thing you get on a computer, and then like this pump over here of a database and like gears, and that's the API, RESTful. So like this is how like, and if you Google RESTful like API, like this is the type of like kind of cruft that I think you come up with, and I think it's totally worthless. So I like to distill it down into my version of what a RESTful service is, and I'm not going to pretend like I've got a PhD in this. This isn't going to get you a job, you know, or get you into MIT. This is Bentley's like trying to figure things out, trying to solve a problem as quickly as possible. There are 4 verbs that are used for RESTful services, and those are get, post, put, and delete. And really simply, you can think of when you make a GET request, so you are someone asking a server for something and you're saying, do this verb. You can get something, which is like, give me some details. You can post something, which is like, hey, go put this. This is a new thing. Or you can put something, which is like, go update. Like, here's this thing. Like, it's changed a little bit. Go update it. And then there's like delete, which is just nuke it from orbit. And that's like really simplified. There are a few others. If you really want to know the technical details and specifications, there are people far smarter than me out there with YouTube videos far longer than this talk will be that really dive into the details. And so just think of it as like get, post, put, delete. To me, like it was this like very caveman way of approaching things. And so I've got this like really simple example using something I think everyone's kind of familiar with, and it's social interactions. So someone comes up to you and they say like, hey, who are your friends? And that to you is kind of like this GET request to yourself, and you're like, oh yeah, get my friends. And you very casually say like, oh, I've got these friends, I'm gonna list them. The Queen, Matt Damon, Dave Chappelle. And so that's like a GET request. And it's like, okay, cool. And someone's like, oh yeah, tell me about Matt a little bit more. And you're like, my friend Matt. And you see there, you've specifically got him listed by Matt. His name is Matt. That's his phone number. He's a cool guy. That's true. And Matt's like, hey, have you met my friend Ben? And you're like, new friend. Better post that to my friends database. And you're like, oh yeah, there's Ben. That's his phone number. He's very, very cool. And then you can go and you can list them, and you're like, oh yeah, someone asked you, like, do you have a friend named Ben? And you're like, yeah, I've got a friend named Ben. There are his deets. And then, all of a sudden, Ben shaves his beard off. And you're like, Ben, I've got to memorize a new like photo of you, and you're not as cool as you used to be. You're just kind of cool now. And all of a sudden, Dave Chappelle does a new Netflix special, which is about to drop, and he makes a joke about you, and you're like, Dave, that wasn't cool. We're not friends anymore. So you delete Dave from your friends. So next time someone comes up to you and asks, Dave, or Bentley, who are your friends? You say, the Queen, Ben with a shaved face, and Matt. So that's an incredibly oversimplified version of the 4 HTTP verbs that are used when interacting with RESTful APIs. And so all APIs really kind of, all RESTful APIs revolve around these 4 words. They all have resources that you can get, post, so create new ones, put, update, and delete. Get rid of old ones. So let's go check out Trello's. And to follow along, all you need is a Trello account. It takes like 30 seconds. You just hop into trello.com/login. Sorry, sign up. You'll be taken to a page. All we need is a name, email, and a password, and you'll be right in. And as soon as you're signed into Trello, you can go to trello.com, and all of our API docs are at developers.trello.com. app-trello.com/advanced reference, or you just click on API. It's almost as though an individual that is a developer advocate spends a lot of their time caring for and loving and updating these documents. Man, do they look good. So you can go and start poking around with GET requests from a browser. The easiest one to do is, let's go check out members. So we scroll through the docs, we go to member, and we go and we say, oh, there's a GET. We can get 1/members, ID member, or username. And if you specify me as a username, it calls with the user associated with the token. So we can actually go over here and go to api.trello.com/1/members/me. Oh, look at that. Invalid token. Looks like we need some authorization details. So we'll go to Trello.com. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. I can see if I can, I think I can make this smaller and do a, nope, can't do a 2-finger zoom.
That's all right, just keep saying what you're typing.
All right, sorry. So the URL is trello.com/app-key, and there you'll be given an API key. And so the way that Trello does authorization is use this key to ask for authorization from a Trello user to get a token, and then you use that token to do stuff on Trello on their behalf. We've added in this little link here so you can generate a token for yourself so that you can grab a token and have an API key and be able to make requests against the API. So we're going to hold on to this key. We're going to go over here. We're going to grab the token, and we're going to say, yeah, we'll allow server token. And so there's our token. I've conveniently saved these over here in notational velocity. A quick word of warning. The token is used to read, write, and access your full Trello account. So you do want to keep this a little bit closer to the vest than normal. I'm going to go ahead and say this. I'm using a very isolated test account here, so that's why I'm sharing this. So do be careful with your token in particular. And in the event that you want to revoke your token, you can go to Trello.com, hop over to your settings, scroll down, and here you will see where the different tokens that you've authorized are. And if for some reason something were going haywire, you could revoke it just by hitting that button. We're not going to do that. So we're going to go back over here to our API, and we're going to add in our key and our token as query parameters. I'm going to make this screen bigger. And so there, we've just made a GET request against ourselves to the members endpoint. And so we've gotten back information about ourselves. So this is very similar to someone asking me, like, oh, yeah, what's Ben Affleck like? I would be like, oh, this is his ID, and here's his bio. And so you can see all of the different fields that are here. And you see that there are 2 boards listed. And so we start poking around the API a little bit more, and we're like, wow, what resources can we start playing around with? There's board, there's cards. Let's see, who here has used Trello before? Some familiarity? Okay. Well, I've created a board. It's called Dev Faction. You can start poking around here. And you'll see up here in the URL, we've got trello.com/b/some letters. And if we go check out card, you're like, oh, look at that, C/some letters. And since we're all very smart people, we're like, oh, I bet that's short for B as in board and C as in card. So let's grab one of those. And let's do the same thing as we did with members. We can go check that out. Let's do a quick GET request. And we'll go look over here on the API, and we'll be like, all right, cards, sure enough, there's a resource where you can get 1/cards, card ID. So we'll do that. api.trello.com/1/cards/that, and grab our key and token. And sure enough, we get the details about the card. We get what state last activity was, the board that it's on, the list that it's on, the name of it, the position, as well as short URLs. It's like, okay, that's cool. We can probably do the same thing with boards. Let's give that a try just to prove that I'm not lying to you all. Grab the board, do boards / board ID, and sure enough, there's the board that we have. All right, super exciting. Wow, Bentley, you can get a bunch of stuff with a browser. That's what we've all been doing since the late 80s. So let's dive a little bit deeper. There's this really cool tool that used to exist. It was called GoMix. But they, as of 2 days ago, I believe, rebranded as Glitch. So any of you that have seen me talk about GoMix before, erase that from your memories, perhaps do a delete, and think of it as Glitch. So Glitch is this really cool collaborative tool that allows you to build something very quickly, not deal with any of the hassles of hosting it, pushing it here, pushing it there, deploying it wherever. Glitch is an in-browser editor that immediately rebuilds as soon as you key up. And one of the really cool things about it is it lets you share things. So if you want to, you can go check out, it's bit.ly, 2m, lowercase m, 6, capital MC, lowercase x, capital V. And there I have put together a small glitch project. And also, in case anyone missed it, I really love, they changed their logo from a hummingbird to a fish, and I've been given a hard time. I'm like, guys, you gotta put together an animation of the fish just like snatching the hummingbirds out of the water. So that was my attempt at it. So let's go check out that project. So this is Glitch, and I will make it bigger. So Glitch, like I said, in-browser editor that lets you collaboratively build things, and this is not the right one. I made a backup just in case, since we are sharing it, any of you that followed the link would be able to go in here and live change things, so I made a backup that no one could touch in case things got out of hand and people started editing things. And look, we've already got someone on there. So it does require a GitHub account, so if you're signed into GitHub, you auth Glitch to allow you access, and then you can log in and you can start messing with things. So you can hop in here, and if you look at the README, you can join my Trello board. So if you click that link, you'll automatically be, uh-oh, we got someone. I was worried about this. This is where things get out of control. All right. So if you click that link, you'll automatically be joined to my Trello board if you have a Trello account. And then you can also go in here and you can remix this project. So clicking remix this will spin up a whole new version of it for you that no one else has access to. But let's stick on this one. I've got a few instructions here on getting your app key and your user token, and then adding them to the secret.env. And then some reading material for later if anyone is so interested. So one of the things when putting together this talk, I was like, oh man, tutorials, like you always watch these tutorials and people like immediately start building like the perfect React, Redux, production ready website, and you like sit there, like imposter syndrome like sets in, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I don't know how to map dispatch to props like that. And so I was like, no, let's like start from the like very basics. Like, all right, you've kind of seen a taste of the Trello API. You've got this idea that, oh, hey, look, like we can go get cards. Look at that, we can probably post cards. Let's try and build something like super naive solution. So we've got our app key, we've got our token, and we're gonna go over here into our glitch project. And for those of you not familiar with Node, it's just a simple little app here that I've set up with Running Express, which is just a server. So that allows us to define these routes with our HTTP verbs. So here we've got app.get, just / so that's just the naked URL. And we're going to log, that a GET request came through, and then we're just going to respond with some HTML. It's not fully formed HTML. It's not fully formed HTML. And we can go over here and we can click live, and there it is. So that is a response coming back from our live glitch server. And we can even go ahead and serve some HTML files. So you'll see over here on the front end, we've got index.html defined. And in it, we just have simple HTML tags. We've got a header, some stuff. So we go check out that same page again. That's right, Marquee is still supported in Chrome. A few claps, thank you, thank you. They won't let me put that on Trello.com. I keep asking, but they keep saying no. If only I had production keys. All right, so to get started, I was like, okay, like let's kind of think through like what's a cool use case for Trello. You've got this board here called Dev Faction. And you know, like maybe you don't want to have everyone have a Trello board. You want to allow users to submit bugs to you through just a form, and you and your team operate off of Trello. And you don't want users to have access to it because you don't want them to see the back and forth conversation that's going on and doing and done. And maybe you're like linking to GitHub accounts or Bitbucket accounts. And you're like, wow, I really wish there was a way for users to submit bugs to me. It's like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. Let's make it happen. So we're gonna make a list called submitted bugs. We're gonna throw it over here. And we're gonna check out our docs. And we see that to generate a card on a board, the only required parameter is the ID list. So that means we need the ID list of the list that we just created. So we've got our board get call here. We refresh it, and let's hop down to, that's not on that one. Let's hop over to lists, and so there's the board ID, or excuse me, the list ID that we need, so submitted bugs. So let's hop back over here to our glitch, and we're just gonna make a little form here. Just a simple HTML form. It's got an action. It's using the method post, so that means that we're going to create a new thing. We've got a key. We're jamming in our token. Here we're going to put in our ID list. And we're also going to have fields where users can input the name and the description. And so you see these fields here. They're hidden, but we know that they're going to get passed through because that's the HTML form post action. And let's actually just send this straight to Trello. So we're going to send this trello.com/1/cards. So when the user hits submit, we're going to post these values straight to Trello. And if we go check out our server.js, let's add in that form. So we're adding a new route, submit your idea. We're just responding with that form.html. So let's go check it out live. Let's confirm first that we don't have any errors. Nope, no errors. And submit your idea. Cool. So you have a cool idea. We're pretending that this is where someone submits a bug. Thing isn't working. The thing is broken. Typical user bug report. And since we're posting straight to Trello, we're just getting back the response from the Trello API where we see the card ID that was created. We see all the details about it. We can hop over to our Trello board, and sure enough, there we have a submitted bug. But that's kind of bad user experience. Like, you don't want to show them an API response as soon as they submit a bug, because they're just going to go right back and submit another bug and be like, hey, I submitted a bug, and it just showed me a bunch of stuff I don't understand. So let's hop back over here, and let's think a little bit. Let's see. Instead of just posting straight to the Trello API, I bet that we have a post handler down here that we could use. And so now we are going to just post and respond with the request body. So let's see if that works. We want to update our form to use this instead of the Trello API. And let me grab this URL. So here, instead of posting to the Trello API, we're going to throw it over here. devfaction/glitch or .glitch. And submit your idea. Oh, I hit too many keys. Uh-oh, I'm doing something bad. Hop back over here to server. Looks like it's auto-submitting. There we go. All right, so that is what we are posting to our own server. We're gonna do some little magic here. And we're gonna, instead of just responding with the details of the post, we're actually gonna make a request and what we're going to do is we're going to make a request on behalf, so the user's going to submit this. It's also really hard to see this when it's that big. We're going to make a request, we're going to post to the Trello API, and instead of responding back with just the details, we're going to say, oh, hey, you made a card, you can view your card here. It looks like I miscopied, missing that part. All right, let's give that a try. All right, so it looks like that worked. Except for we did not update the ID list appropriately, so we want to put in the new ID list because I was using an old one there. So let's grab it. We'll update it here. Go try it one more time. Someone's doing something there. All right, there we go. So we've got a card, buy hot dogs. Your users are now able to submit bug reports. And just for humor's sake, let's go. So we also respond back where we grab the short URL from Trello, and that way the user can go check it out theoretically if they could see that, but you don't want them to see that. I'm now curious. Hear me for a second. We're going to go see what people are doing. This is scary considering that's being recorded. Uh-oh, cats. Cats and upward marquee. I don't know what that is. This is too much for the internet right now. God, now I'm so distracted. So we'll go check. So you can do all kinds of really cool things with Glitch. Obviously, you can see people were live editing it. There's a really cool community, and I actually put this on our dev faction board. So you can go check out the Glitch community. There are all kinds of really cool projects there, everything from like a full-fledged starter app for hackathons to just sample tutorials, like get started, that sort of thing. I've got literally dozens of Trello API examples on how to do things. So if you're ever curious, like, hey, how does this happen in Trello? Feel free to holler at me. And one of the cool things about APIs and web clients, in particular web clients and not anything on your phone, is you can actually watch how web clients interact with APIs using the network tab. And this is one of my favorite things about our API and the Trello web client is our API is what is used, our documented API is what our web client uses. So there's nothing like hidden or behind the scenes or nothing that anyone doesn't have access to. So you can go in here and if you're ever curious, like, man, I really wonder like what happens when you move a card from one list to another. Like I can't find that documentation even though it's incredibly well documented. You can go here and you can watch and you can see there is a call. Let's see if I can make this bigger. Sure enough, our web client using the same API that everyone else has access to. You can see here it's making a put to a specific card resource with the ID list that it's headed to. And so that's a great way of like debugging things if you're ever curious on how something works. All the time I'll have someone ask like, oh, like there's this new feature that you guys just shipped. How are you doing that? And sometimes, most of the time, I have no idea. I don't work on like the web client team. I'm like, oh, let me just go watch the network tab for a few minutes and play around with things. And all of a sudden, you have like the entire API unlocked to you. So that's really a great way to watch, especially for web clients, like what is happening behind the scenes. The other cool thing, I threw this on here. I promised GIFs of some sort. And didn't want to show off just the Trello API. So you can go check out server, and if you scroll all the way down, past all of my awesome examples, there's actually an app.get/gifs, and here we're making use of Giphy has an API. They just require an API key, and you can hit /random, and you get a cool random GIF back. So let's go check that out. And let's see if this works. Uh-oh. So here, every time we refresh, you can actually see. Also, I was really scared of doing this because I'm not sure what their NSFW permissions are on random. But here you can see that we're making a GET request to, well, we're making it to ourselves, but here's where we're making the request. So jam that in at the bottom as well. And it's 7:03, so I don't want to steal too much more time. But as I mentioned, you can hop on here at bit.ly/2m6mcxv. You can remix this for yourself, play around with it, ping me at Bentley Cook if you have any questions. And that is the Trello API in 30 minutes. Are there any questions? Cool.
Thank you so much, Bentley. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. That was excellent. All right, so that was Bentley Cook, and that was fantastic. We're going to have Laura Stedman come on in a second here. Let's give it up for Laura, making maps with JavaScript. Woo! Just want this as close to the center as possible. If you get it on the edge too much, if you turn your head at all.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, it's on. Didn't even notice. All right. This. Just get my computer set up here. All right, I'm gonna stand up because I get really excited about maps, and I feel like if I'm sitting down, I'll just be like swinging around in the chair too much. All right, so tonight I'm gonna talk to you guys about maps with JavaScript, because what else would you make a map with? Well, traditionally, you'd make it with a lot of other things, but in the web world, you wanna make it with JavaScript. My name is Laura Stedman. You can find me on Twitter at AdventureSteady. I currently work at Twitter. About 4 years ago, I started a code school. So if you're in code school or thinking about getting into programming or scared of JavaScript, I was scared of JavaScript at one point, and now I think it's awesome. So just keep with it. First off, if you want to see some code, I have a couple of examples I'll walk through. They're super basic, but that's the GitHub link if you're interested. Tonight, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about a few things. First off, thinking about why do you want to have a map anyway? Like why have a map? Like, do you really need a map? There's lots of reasons to have a map. Understanding what a map is made of. Like, maps are actually different components. And when you first start getting into making maps on the web, at least when I first started doing it on the web, it was really confusing to me. Like, there's all these different libraries and sources for things. Like, what do I actually need to do? So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll talk about what are some of your options. What are some of the libraries that are available? And what might you want to use or might you not want to use? And hopefully I'll show you some things that you don't know about. I'm also going to show you some cool things you can do that you might not know about. And then finally, a few resources so that you can keep learning more if you want to. Quick question, has anybody made a map with JavaScript before? A couple people? Okay, not too many. How many people are like familiar with JavaScript a little bit, like a little scared of semicolons, but it's okay, you try it? Okay. I was trying to get a good feel. All right, so first off, why do you want a map? Maps are really, when it boils down to it, it's a type of data visualization. And you're displaying specifically spatial data, data with coordinates that map locations to the real world, right? So where are they on the globe, if you will? Or maybe it's a fake globe even. There's lots of different ways to display that data on the web. And not every solution is the right solution for the data that you might have. So I really, when I think about making maps and data visualizations in general, understanding like what you're trying to get across to your audience is really important. Like, what is the message you're trying to get? What are you trying to help them do? Thinking about that helps inform what it is that you're trying to build. So for example, maybe you're trying to provide directions. Like today, I had to come here from downtown, right? Like everybody does this on Google Maps all the time. How do I get there? Where do I turn? It's a little different than navigation. Uber just posted an article, it was in the last couple of days, about how they're redesigning their driver apps to help them focus on navigation, help them simplify the process of focusing on how do I get to the next rider, how do I get to their destination. If you're doing Uber Pool, I don't know if you've ever done that, but like you'll be riding and they'll stop and pick someone else up and they'll drop someone off. And how do they do that and keep it simple, keep the driver focused on driving, right? That's really important. So they make specific design choices to make that happen. Another reason you might want a map is to show analysis results. So this is called a choropleth map. Has anyone heard that word before? Okay, cool. I'm just always curious, like, who knows what? So a choropleth map is basically, I've done some sort of analysis. In this case, it is unemployment rates across the US by county. And you're putting things into buckets, right? So this one is unemployment rate by percentage. So you've got one bucket, for example, that's 9% and above. So if it's above 9%, it's in the same color bucket. And there's lots of ways to make those buckets if you get into making these kinds of analysis maps. But it's very different than showing a route, right? Like this is a very different map. This one is made by Mike Bostock, who's the creator of D3. So this is actually a D3 map, which is pretty cool. Another reason you might want to use a map, especially on your website, is just to show some context, to give the user some sort of information about what you're talking about, right? This is an example from State of the Map US, which is an annual conference in the geo world. And it's just showing where their conference is. And you can click on the buildings on it, and it's like, oh, here are the conference events. Here's the hotel that everything's going to be at. So it's not really, you're not navigating with it. You're not exploring some analysis. You're just figuring out where you're going to be. Maybe you don't want to like give someone exactly information, but you want to tell a story, right? Maps and data are great for telling a story and getting across some kind of bigger piece of information that you want from your users to see. So this is a really cool one. I'm actually going to show you because I thought it was cool. This is called Arya's Journey from the Game of Thrones. And it's actually a story map. So this is a fake place, right? This doesn't exist in the real world. Sorry, spoiler alert. but it's really cool. Like there's this map and you can like zoom in on it and it tells you, like you can look at pictures, you can kind of explore where are things in the world of Game of Thrones and like build this context of the storyline, right? Like what's at Acorn Hall? The guy without an eye, you know? So that's like a really cool use of maps, right? Like you're telling a story and giving people this way to explore a story in many different dimensions and explore it at their own pace and go back and forth. And this is a really cool one. I really like that one. So, all right. I want to present. OK, so there's obviously lots of different ways to use a map on your website, on your web app to do cool things. I'm sure there are other reasons that you guys can think of. But moving on, what is a map? Like, I've shown you different kinds of maps, but what is a map? What is it made of? And this was a piece that I struggled with. So I have a background. I used to be a GIS analyst. So I worked on desktop software, building maps. I did an internship for the Park Service, for example, and I built geology maps for our field workers and maps of springs, like freshwater springs in the desert. It was a very different experience than building maps on the web. And so when I first started doing this, it was really confusing to me because things fit together a little differently. So the three main pieces of a web app, the way that I think of them at least, are you have a base map, you have a data layer, and you have UI interactions. So let's dig into those a little bit. A base map is basically your canvas, right? It's sort of the base layer that you're going to use to build your story, whatever it is, whether it's giving people directions or telling people about the Game of Thrones. A lot of times it looks something like this, right? That's pretty recognizable. You're not like analyzing anything here. You're just showing, here's the United States, here's the terrain. So a base map on the web is usually made of raster tiles. So rasters are just JPEGs, PNGs. They're images made of pixels. So if you ever load up Google Maps and inspect it in Chrome, you'll find there's just a bunch of images that are loading. If you ever have a bad connection and you try to load up Google Maps or some other map, even on your phone, you'll see it loading up in blocks. Have you guys seen that before? Yeah, some of you. It's because we're loading it in tiles. And so that's the way that web maps, base maps are loaded, is we use this tile grid to talk to the server and say, hey, what do I actually need to show? What zoom level, like how close to the ground do I need to be when I show this? And what have I loaded, what haven't I loaded? And so traditionally we use these raster tiles. So they're just JPEGs getting loaded onto your screen. A newer thing is vector tiles. So raster, they're blocks of images, pixels. Vectors are lines, right? So like D3 uses SVG. Those are vectors. So vector tiles have been around for a while, but I feel like in the last year or two are really starting to take off. The browser can finally handle them. So what's really cool about them is when you zoom in, you don't have to go find a new image necessarily. Like you've got a line, so it's still crisp. You can redraw it if you need to. So this is another example. So MapZen is a company that produces base maps, and they have a vector tile service. And so this is actually for D3. So if you look at this here, I don't know how well you can see it, but we're actually loading up SVGs, and the tile itself is an SVG, which is pretty cool. Like all those lines are drawn on your screen there. We're still loading them in tiles because that's a really fast way to say, hey, I need these 6 tiles for the view frame. Just give me those. And if you zoom out, oh, I need 10 tiles now, right? So data layers. So that's the second component to a map. What are you telling your story about? What kind of data do you want your audience to see or interact with? Traditionally, you think of them in terms of points, lines, and polygons. So points, locations, right? If you type in Codecraft on Google Maps, you'll probably get a little point marker. You guys all know what that looks like. A line is like a route, right? When you say, how do I get from downtown Boulder to Codecraft? It draws a line on there. A polygon, you can think of something as like a county, a building outline. Those are all pretty intuitive, but they're different kinds, and you have to interact with them a little bit differently. So finally, you have UI interactions, right? Everybody's zoomed in on a map. Everybody's panned around. You clicked on things, and things pop up. Interactions. But those really make a big difference when you're building your map, what kind of interactions you allow and how you build them in, right? Another one that you'll see sometimes on maps is being able to turn on and off data layers. And you don't see this as much on like modern web maps, but in the more traditional GIS space, you frequently see these big, bulky maps with like 15 different data layers. You can turn them all on and off. But that's something that you can do with your web map. Like, don't think you can't. You can have multiple layers, let people turn them on and off, and see how they interact. So one important note is you won't always have all of these components. Just because they're the three sort of main ones that you'll usually have, I'm not going to tell you that you have to have UI interaction, right? It can be a static map that you can't click on. I don't know if I would recommend not having data, because that's like, why do you have a map? Unless your base map is just really cool. Like, you could maybe not have a base map if you do things a certain way. So how do you actually go about making a map with JavaScript? Like, what are your options here? Has anyone ever sort of looked around at maps on the internet and like how you might go about making a web map? No? A couple people? When you start Googling it, there's a lot of options. And you might just be tempted to go with like Google Maps. There's a lot of other options. How do you combine all these things? You need a library to help you do it. So there's a bunch of them. So I mentioned Google Maps. They're pretty standard. Leaflet is another really great JavaScript library. It's open source. D3, which is data visualization library. You can make maps in it. They've got great support for projections. Leaflet, I think, is also getting really great support for projections, which is how do you make that 3D globe 2D? How do you map that space? And there's implications there for if you have a 3D globe and I'm in Antarctica, do I distort the shape of it or the size of it? Like, something has to give, because you can't just go like this and everything be perfect. It's a really that's a talk in itself. So D3, Leaflet, Google Maps, High Maps, which is related to high charts. If any of you have ever used that to make like really configurable graphs, they do a lot of the sort of legwork for you. Mapzen provides a bunch of stuff, and then OpenLayers 3 is another source. And this is definitely not inclusive. It's just a few good examples. So base maps. How do you actually get a base map? When you use some sort of library like Google Maps API or Leaflet, a lot of times they'll provide or suggest one for you. Many of them are for free. You can pay for them. And you can also make your own custom base maps. So just a few providers. Again, Stamen is a really cool mapping company that they provide really neat base layers. I'll show you a few in a minute. Mapbox is a web mapping company. They're doing a lot of stuff in the geo space. You can get their layers. You can also build custom layers with them. Mapzen. OpenStreetMap is an open source map. So you can go on openstreetmap.com and look at, let's say, your neighborhood. And if your street address isn't on your building, you can add it. If you go to, let's say you go camping somewhere and you say, wow, that was a really great camping spot, you can go on OpenStreetMap and add it as a camping site. So it's taking open source data and crowdsourcing to build a base map. It's a really cool organization. It's kind of fun to like poke around on satellite imagery and be like, oh, I'm adding this thing. So again, Google provides base maps. Esri or ESRI, they're a traditional, or started as a traditional mapping company. They've definitely moved into the web space. They also provide a number of base maps. So you've got options. So here are a few just sort of like what they look like. So Mapbox provides satellite data. They also provide these really nice like different shaded base maps. This is an example of Stamen. Stamen recently came out with a terrain map, which is really nice. So providing like that terrain data with some road information as your base map that you can then put your own data on top of. Again, like I said, you can make your own custom base maps, and this is really fun. So these are a couple of examples of custom base maps that people have made. So this one here on the left is like a Roy Lichtenstein inspired like comic pop art map. And then on the one on the right is like a pirate map, which I really like. But there's all kinds of maps, base maps. You can get all kinds of inspiration. They use a lot of the like custom mapping studios. You use something that's kind of similar to CSS to define what it looks like. So if you've done a little bit of CSS, it's really fun to play around with making your own base map. It feels a little similar. One caveat about getting base maps is A, be careful about where you get it from, and B, don't build a web app, throw a base map on there and just expect it to work forever. MapQuest, you guys remember MapQuest, right? They provided a free base map, free world base map for a long time and started sending out notices to people that they could and posting on the website, hey, we're deprecating our base map. And then eventually they turned it off. And so people went to their weather site and saw that, which is, where is that? I have no idea. So that's one caveat. Like if you're using someone else's base map, you're using a service, right? And you should do this with your software libraries too, right? Like keep things up to date, make sure that they still work, or else you'll get a sad image background. And you can see here too, like those are tiles, right? Because that image gets repeated. So they're just like loading the same tile in for every tile spot. All right, so let's do a couple of demos. I'm going to show you using base maps with Google and Stamen, and then also adding some data to a map with Leaflet. Super simple. Let's see. I don't know that I need that. All right, so first up, let's go to, all right, can you guys see that okay? All right, so I'm doing the same thing here, basically. On the top is a map. I haven't put any data on it, but it's a Google base map. On the bottom is a Stamen base map. Like they look really similar, but a little bit different, right? So when you're making design choices of like how you want to build a map, you've got options to play with. So let me show you how I did this real quick. Can you guys see this okay? Is that good? Okay, so I've got some super basic styling, a gray background, because why not? When you build a map, you usually have to tell it what is the bounding area of your map. So how tall do I want it to be? How wide do I want it to be? And you can kind of play with that to whatever you want. Most map libraries, you say, here's a div, it's empty, it's got an ID, and then in your JavaScript code, you tell it, hey map, go attach yourself to this div. So here I've got a Google Map div, and then I've got a Stamen div. So you have to load in your Google Map. You need a special key to do it. And then here I'm also loading in the Stamen tiles. So when you build a map, you want to tell it where the center point is, right? Where does the map go in the world to start? You also tell it the zoom layer, like how far in do I want to be zoomed in or out? Do I want to see the whole world? Do I want to see the state of Colorado? Do I want to see Boulder? Pretty basic. So I've got a couple of functions here. So I'm building a basic map, right? So I'm getting the Google Map div that I created earlier. And then I'm creating a new Google Map. And I'm telling it where the center is and where the zoom is. And then for the Stamen map, right, that's that other map, I'm getting that div. I'm still using Google's API to render my map object and render the UI. I'm using all of those tools that Google is giving me. I'm just substituting my own base map, which is kind of fun. So if you have an app or a website that has a Google Maps map, if you get tired of that base map, you can put something else in there, which is kind of fun. So again, I'm telling it where the center is. I'm telling it where the zoom is. The trick to change it is you have to tell it the map type ID, and you have to give it this map controller options. And then I'm just setting the layer with my layer type. And then I'm just sort of kicking off these two things and building them. So that's all it took to do those two things, which is pretty easy, right? If I want to change, the statement has several base maps you can use. So all I had to do is, give it the different name. And now I have a very different map down here. I'm like zoomed, there we go. So this is their toner map, which is kind of fun. It's like you copied it on a Xerox machine. San Francisco looks really good. That's like their example. So that's kind of fun. Right, that's a very specific kind of map that you might want to display data on. It might not be a general purpose routing or something, but you could do something really cool with that. All right, so the second example I said I was going to show you is loading data, loading some data onto your map. So I downloaded from Open Basin Mountain Parks. Boulder has some great open GIS data. So if you're interested in playing with GIS data, like definitely go and like check it out. So I downloaded some data as GeoJSON, which is just a data format. It looks like JSON, but it's for geodata. So all I had to do with this, so this one I'm using Leaflet, I believe. Yep, so I'm using Leaflet to build this. So I've just pulled in Leaflet as a CDN, and I'm using jQuery to help me do a couple of things. Again, I've got my center, I've got my zoom, I've got my div with my ID. It's pretty basic. I'm saying, give me a base layer. So I'm saying stamen tile layer. So Leaflet has stamen sort of built in to like quickly grab it. I want to use the watercolor because that's a fun one. And then I'm making a new map. I'm telling it where the center point is. I'm telling it what the zoom is. And then I add this base layer down here. In the meantime, I'm getting some JSON from my local file system. I've just sort of saved it locally. And I'm iterating over it. And for each feature in that GeoJSON, I'm adding a pop-up. So I just want to know, so these are trailheads, so I want to know what the name of the trailhead is. So if I go to /trailheads, there we go. I've got a syntax error in my GeoJSON. So this is like a totally different base map, right? That's kind of fun. But just like that, in like a few lines of code, I've loaded up some data, and I've got points on the map, and I can see, oh, where do I want to go hiking? All right. Any questions so far? Good.
Can you jump back to the code?
Yeah.
The on each feature function there, that's built into which
Leaflet. Leaflet. Yeah. Yeah. So Leaflet in this case is driving the sort of sandwiching all the components of the map together and like managing everything for you. Leaflet has really great documentation, so like don't hesitate to like go Google for things. And this L is sort of the global for Leaflet, right? So the yep. So when you reference L, you're referencing the Leaflet library there. Okay, so like I said, data layers, I use GeoJSON on that one. You'll traditionally find things in terms of shapefile, which is a more expanded format of geodata. You can easily convert it to GeoJSON, and I'll show you that in just a second. And sometimes you'll find data in JSON format, right? If you're using an API like Foursquare or Yelp or any other sort of data that's provided by API, right? There's tools to process it. So if you want to use desktop software to like look at your data and play around with it, QGIS is a great open source tool. If you want to translate your data from, say, shapefile, if you get government data, a lot of times it's in shapefile. You might want to convert it to GeoJSON, and there's a reason for that. There's a really cool command line tool called OGR to OGR. And if you convert your data, let me see here. Do I have, I meant to pull this up. So that GeoJSON trailhead thing that we just looked at, if you have GeoJSON data, GitHub will render it for you, which is pretty cool. So you can like load your data up there, you can change it, you can store your data in Git history, and you've got a ready-made map right there to look at, which is like pretty sweet. And then you click on it and it shows you all the data available in that point. All right. What's that? So again, finding data, government sites, if you don't have, you might have your own data, right? But maybe you want some other data to relate it to. Census Bureau has great data on all kinds of stuff. USGS. The National Park Service has a database called IRMA. And then Boulder County and City, they also have a great GIS system, as well as the Denver region. There's a thing called DRCOG, Denver Regional Council of Governments, I believe. So they provide a lot of data as well. If you're looking for data and you're like not sure how to find it, search terms to use include whatever geodata, look for whatever shapefile, because that's traditionally what it'll be stored in, and then also Google around GIS. So using the data that you found, double check you're allowed to use it. Make sure that it makes sense to use it. Like, is it really old and outdated? Is it complete, or is it someone's pet project that they abandoned halfway? Make sure you can get it into a format you can use. Again, if it's in a shapefile, convert it to GeoJSON. Here's some quick instructions on how to do that, just so you can see how easy it is. You brew install it with Homebrew, and then you use this ogre to ogre command. You tell it I want it to be in GeoJSON. CRS84 is a projection so that GitHub will display it nicely. And you tell it the name of the GeoJSON file you want, the name of the shapefile that you're putting in. It's that easy. OK, so user interactions really quick. The library that you choose to use, whether it's like Google Maps API or Leaflet, it'll handle the basics for you, which is really nice. You can customize it all you want. Again, like these open source libraries have really great documentation. Adding pop-ups to your points is usually just adding some HTML and styling it, like grabbing the data that's associated with that point and displaying it. Most of the interactions on a map are event handlers that you're used to, like click handlers, like click events, right? You guys are used to that. So, OK, now, real quick, let's all be badasses. I want you to know about some tools that will wow even your cat. Right? So heat maps. Heat maps are pretty cool. It's basically a way of showing concentrations of things. So this map, this demo that I have, so it's a plugin for Leaflet. When I mouse over it, it's like caching my scroll events, my mouse overs, and building that heat map. I could do that for hours. Let's see here. Cool base maps we've already talked about a little bit. There's plenty more than I've shown you. There's always new ones coming up. Cardo, which is a really cool company, they have a thing called Torque.js. It's displaying spatial data over time, which is like for a long time was a real problem. How do we do this without like building GIFs? That was what used to happen. So with Cardo, this is sort of what it looks like when you go into Cardo. You go to your website. I built this map. So you can look at your data that you upload to them, and you say, like, OK, I've got all this cool data. And then I want to make a map to share with the public. So this is snowy owls, which are the big white owls, like in Harry Potter. They live up in the Arctic, and in the winter, they come down south. So this was data that I pulled over a few months, a few years ago. And you can just see like the reports of snowy owls over time, which which is pretty cool. And you can do cooler stuff than birds if you're not into birds. I can't think of anything cooler, but that's me. So people have used that for things like ship traffic, airplane traffic, anything that moves over time, and you can show fluctuations and patterns with that. So it's really cool stuff there. Turf.js is another one. It's basically doing GIS analysis in the browser or server side on your node server, which is like mind-boggling to me still. A lot of times geospatial analysis is pretty intense. You usually do it sort of at like a database level. So that's a really cool library to play with too. And then finally, like, who says you need to map in 2 dimensions? Have any of you heard of WebGL? Sort of an up-and-coming thing. It was like really hard a few years ago. Now it's sort of reaching the point where like people are like actually making really cool stuff with it. So Cesium is one company, one group that's doing it. Basically, like making 3-dimensional point clouds, 3-dimensional maps. And they take a little bit of time to load. My computer's slow. Just thinking about it. There we go. So this is cool. I can like mouse around this. I don't know what I've got turned on, but these are all like 3D. Like, I'm just like moving around, and there's these like 3D shapes on the earth. I don't know, it's pretty cool. Here's another example that I found that I wanted to share with you. And these 2 websites also have like tons of data on them, tons of examples. So point cloud is really big in GIS. There's a thing called LiDAR, which is laser. It's basically you take data with lasers, so you get 3-dimensional data points that people use for things like utility lines and construction. Like, is that dam sinking and like distorting over time? But these point clouds. Yeah. So this is really cool. Like you can like this 3D point cloud, and this is like millions and millions of points, which is hard to render. And I can zoom in on it. They've got them all colored. So the things you can do with this are pretty endless, right? Like, and this is like some sort of coordinate plane, so it doesn't even have to be a real world coordinate plane, which is cool. You do all kinds of stuff. All right, so that is it. I've talked enough. If you want to learn more, again, the GitHub repo where all those examples, the code examples I showed you, is there. There's some really great tutorials that Leaflet, Mapbox have. If you're interested in mapping with D3, there's D3 GeoMap, which I found earlier this week. If you're really into it, there's some meetups. Map Time is run by, sort of affiliated with OpenStreetMap. But it's all kinds of mapping stuff. There's one in Boulder, there's one in Denver. There's global ones if you're traveling. If you're going back to Chattanooga, there's probably one there. Geospatial Amateurs in Denver is a more traditional GIS group. So if you're really into GIS stuff and maps, that's a really cool group. Other than that, thank you. Yeah. I know I blazed through a lot of stuff kind of fast. Are there any questions?
What led to your obsession with maps?
And birds.
Maps and birds. 2 different stories. 2 different stories. So what led to my obsession with maps? In college, I was going to be an archaeologist, and I took a class on GIS to help me be a better archaeologist. Right? How do I map my site? How do I map my finds? How do I relate it to the bigger picture of the world? Ended up doing a GIS internship with the Park Service. That was really cool. Did a number of other GIS jobs for a couple of years. And I've liked maps ever since. Maps are cool, right? Birds. Yeah, so why am I obsessed with birds? I worked for the Park Service on the Deepwater Horizon oil spill cleanup, and my job was to protect resources. So make sure we don't destroy sand dunes, sea turtle nests, that sort of thing, while we're cleaning up the resources. Part of my job was to look for endangered bird species showing up, and they just looked like little gray birds. Like the rest of them, they're all shorebirds. But it got me paying attention to the weird birds that I saw. I was like, holy cow, who do I have to call about this bird? And I'd like pull out my like bird guide and like, oh, this is like really common here. And I was like, what is this thing? I've never seen it before. So that got me hooked on birds. But yeah. Other questions?
Were you the one coding the cats into Bentley's code there?
No, I wasn't. I should have been. Yeah. Next time. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura.
No problem.
So if you could do me one favor and go ahead and hang out up here. We're going to do something a little different, which we haven't done yet. We're going to get the whole Dev Faction crew up here and get Bentley back up here, and we're all going to like say goodbye to each other and wave at the camera. That's cool with you guys. Hank, yeah, Adam, Brendan, Kate. Where's Kate at? Is Kate not here? Okay, let's get who's still here. Yeah, get Eddie up here. And yeah, come on up. Awesome work you did there. Good job. All right. I thought you guys would be a little more excited about this. All right, let's do some chest bumping. Yeah.
Wait, still.
Yeah, go ahead. You want to say goodbye to everybody?
Goodbye, everybody.
Farewell.
See ya.
Peace.
Bye.
Do svidania.
All right, hasta luego. Peace out, guys. Have a wonderful night.